She was young, full of dreams, and gone in a blink. The murder of 17-year-old Mackenzie Cowell wasn't just brutal. It was terrifying and layered in more questions than answers. A small town shaken a body by the river, and a suspect who claimed innocence until the end. But what really happened? And why does so much still feel off? This is not just another true crime story. This is the full case broken down like never before, only on this channel.
Welcome to Dark Chronicles, where shadows hide the truth.
It was supposed to be just another ordinary Tuesday. 17-year-old Mackenzie Cowell had a routine school beauty academy dance practice home. She lived in Wenatchee, Washington, a place so quiet and tucked away that people rarely locked their doors. But on February 9th, 2010, everything changed, and it would haunt the town forever. Mackenzie wasn't just any teenager. She was vibrant, ambitious, and fiercely determined. Splitting her time between her parents' homes, she was only months away from graduating high school. And already enrolled in a cosmetology program at the Wenatchee Academy of Hair Design, she had dreams of becoming a hairstylist, maybe even owning her own salon someday. Dance was another passion. She performed with her school's team, the Apleties, lighting up parades and festivals with her energy. And for those who knew her, Mackenzie was unforgettable, kind, bubbly, and quietly brave. But it hadn't always been easy. Mackenzie had spent years being bullied for her underbite, something she was planning to surgically fix. Yet through it all, she pushed forward, her father. Reed admired her work ethic, up before 6 a.m., often home after 6 p.m., balancing school, modeling dance, and now cosmetology. She was young, but she was building something. That night, Reed had planned something simple. A father-daughter dinner. With Mackenzie's packed schedule, moments like these were precious. He expected a message around 5 p.m. when classes ended, but it never came. 40 minutes passed, then an hour. He called straight to voicemail, not even one ring. And just like that, the dread began to creep in. At 8 p.m., just as Reed was about to call the police, they called him. Mackenzie's car, an older Pontiac Grand Prix, had been found abandoned at Pitcher Canyon, miles away from town, in a place so remote it made no sense. Her purse was still inside. Some clothes too, but no keys, no phone, no Mackenzie, and only one set of footprints in the snow. Detectives launched a massive search that night. Dogs, helicopters, boots on the ground, but there was nothing. No sounds, no clue, just an empty vehicle, a lonely canyon, and a father who knew deep down something terrible had happened. The story broke fast. Local news stations flashed her face across the screen. Missing teen in Wenatchee. The headlines read, but people didn't need to be told something was off. Mackenzie wasn't a runaway. She had no enemies, no signs of trouble. The town held its breath, and then 4 days later, the nightmare became real. Her body was found on the edge of the Columbia River, still in her beauty school uniform, beaten, stabbed, strangled. No drugs, no alcohol, no evidence of sexual assault. But one detail sent chills through everyone who heard it. Her arm had nearly been severed after death. The question was no longer, where is Mackenzie? Now it was, who could have done something this horrific? The investigation into Mackenzie Cowell's murder began with urgency but little direction. Detectives returned to the beauty academy where she was last seen, hoping for any hint, any clue. Her classmates said Mackenzie had stepped out for a 15-minute break around 3 p.m., asking whether she needed to sign out. But she hadn't told anyone where she was going. Surveillance footage confirmed it. Mackenzie was seen leaving out the back door alone. That was the last confirmed sighting, at 3:42 p.m. She sent a casual text to her boyfriend. "Hey, what's up?" he replied, but she never answered. That was the final communication from her phone. It was as if she had vanished. Her debit card, which only had about $20 on it, showed no activity. Nothing was stolen. There was no robbery, no known motive. But then reports started to surface. 3 separate residents told police they had seen a slim, tall white man with dark hair and a long coat walking near Pitcher Canyon, the very road where Mackenzie's car had been found. The sightings occurred between 4:30 and 5:30 p.m. That man was now their mystery. Authorities began analyzing Mackenzie's phone records, thousands of pages. They issued warrants for her Facebook and MySpace accounts. They combed through messages, comments, every digital breadcrumb. Reporters covering the story noted how the police were treating the case. This wasn't a runaway situation, not even close. This was serious from the start, with no strong leads. The FBI joined the effort. The Mackenzie Cowell task force was formed. Over 800 people were interviewed. Hundreds of tips were chased. Flyers went up across Wenatchee. It had been 72 hours since she disappeared, then 4 days, then a week. The discovery of her body only added to the horror. She had been killed and left at the Columbia River. But how had she gotten there? Where was she murdered? Those were now the key questions. The medical examiner confirmed that she had not been assaulted in a sexual way, which ruled out one possible motive. But the attempt to cut off her arm and the presence of a serrated knife lodged in her shoulder indicated a far more disturbing deliberate intent. Duct tape was also found near her body, and it would later become one of the most crucial pieces of evidence. Dive teams scoured the riverbanks and nearby areas for any sign of the killer, any discarded item, any hidden clue. The theory developed that her killer may have been someone she knew, someone she trusted, or maybe a complete stranger with dark fantasies. Police began looking at everyone in Mackenzie's orbit. Her boyfriend, her mother's boyfriend, acquaintances, anyone who might have had access to her that day. No one was above suspicion. Even the people closest to her were questioned thoroughly. Her boyfriend was cooperative and agreed to a polygraph. He passed almost. One question tripped him up. "Do you know who killed Mackenzie?" The results said he failed, but he insisted he had no idea. He was shaken, visibly disturbed, but not evasive. Detectives noted his reaction, but didn't treat him as a suspect. Neither did they treat her parents that way. The focus shifted outward. The case was growing darker, and then out of nowhere, a new name surfaced. Her name was Liz Reed, a former drug addict and police informant who claimed to have seen a video, a snuff film, she said, showing Mackenzie Cowell being murdered. Liz told investigators that the killing was a case of mistaken identity and that 2 drug dealers, Sam and Emmanuel, were responsible. According to her, Sam had confessed to her directly, saying, "I choked that girl to shut her up." She even claimed to have retrieved a ring belonging to Mackenzie from the crime scene sent there by Emmanuel. That ring was handed over to police. At first, the story gripped detectives. Liz's description of the murder weapon matched the knife found in Mackenzie's shoulder, and she provided details that had not yet been released to the public. It seemed impossible for her to know those things unless she had seen something real. But no one in Mackenzie's family recognized the ring. Neither did her friends. Police began checking phone records and alibis for Sam and Emmanuel, eventually ruling them both out. Emmanuel had been working at the time of the murder, and phone data confirmed it still. Detectives couldn't completely ignore Liz's claims. They searched for the alleged video chasing leads for months, but came up empty. Eventually, Liz withdrew her statement, saying she feared the police would charge her with murder. Officially, the investigation had gone cold again. 7 months passed, hundreds of interviews, thousands of tips, but no breakthrough until a letter arrived from prison. The author, a man named Theo Keys, another police informant. His message to detectives reignited the case with a single name, Christopher Wilson. Theo said Chris was an old friend, but something had always been off. He told them about a time when Chris had randomly started choking a woman at a party. then casually stopped and acted like nothing happened. Theo also knew Chris had attended the same hair academy as Mackenzie and lived just a couple of blocks away from it. That detail caught detectives' attention immediately. They pulled the school security footage. It showed Chris leaving the academy less than 2 minutes after Mackenzie walked out. Through the same back door, then nothing. No sightings, no contact. Chris had no alibi for the rest of that day. He texted his ex-girlfriend a few times, but no one had seen him. Chris claimed he didn't even know Mackenzie personally, just that she went to the same school. He volunteered for a DNA swab. And that's when everything started to unravel. The DNA. They matched. Specifically, it was found on the duct tape near Mackenzie's body. When confronted with that fact, Chris immediately asked for a lawyer and stopped talking. Detectives started digging into his background. He had no criminal record, no history of violence. But what they found next was chilling. Chris had a fascination with death. He idolized serial killers. He had a tattoo of Hannibal Lecter. He was obsessed with the show Dexter, in which the main character murders and dismembers his victims. And Chris had once worked in funeral homes, where he told classmates he liked cutting people up. People who knew. Christopher Wilson described him as quiet. A bit odd, but not threatening. His mother said that being different didn't make someone dangerous. His best friend described him as kind and generous, saying he simply didn't look or dress like everyone else in Wenatchee. Chris had dyed jet black hair, visible tattoos, and wore dark, unconventional clothing. But detectives weren't interested in appearances, they were interested in facts. The description of the man seen walking down from Pitcher Canyon that day, a slim, tall white male with long, dark hair, was a match. Chris had left the building just moments after Mackenzie and was unaccounted for during the time frame of her disappearance. That wasn't all. A deeper dive into his life uncovered more disturbing behavior. One classmate said Chris had bragged about using a belt to strangle someone at a hotel. Another said he once joked about liking to cut people up when he worked on them. But jokes like that in hindsight take on an entirely different weight still. Chris denied everything. He told police he had never been to Pitcher Canyon. He had no reason to go there, no connection. But when his DNA turned up on the duct tape found near Mackenzie's body, he couldn't explain it, and he refused to try. After asking for a lawyer, Chris went silent. Investigators believed that his obsession with Dexter may have played a role in the crime. The attempt to cut off Mackenzie's arm, the stabbing the control, it all fit with the type of violence seen in the show. But police needed more than parallels. They needed proof. They executed a search warrant on his apartment, looking for forensic evidence. That's where they found a stained patch on the carpet. Chris claimed he had spilled water while dropping a bong. But the lab results proved otherwise. It was Mackenzie's blood, and there was a lot of it. That stain confirmed what detectives had feared. Mackenzie had been killed inside his apartment. The pieces were coming together. But there was still one more twist, a second arrest. Police took 22-year-old Tessa Maria Skiljan into custody. She was a friend of Chris's and had been seen in photographs taken in his apartment and photos that showed her posing in the exact spot where Mackenzie's blood had been found. When asked, Tessa said she had no idea she was on top of a blood stain. She said Chris had taken the photos without telling her what had happened in that room. But there was more. Investigators uncovered cell phone videos of Tessa walking around the apartment, zooming in on bloodstains. In one clip, Chris could be heard asking, "Does it look clean?" And Tessa replying, "Yeah, it's clean." Considering what? That question hung heavy. Tessa was charged with rendering criminal assistance and obstructing the investigation. She posted bond, but in the end, no formal charges were filed against her. The focus remained on Chris Wilson. The case against him was building by the day. And now the community that once knew him as the quiet guy at beauty school was preparing to watch him face justice. And In court, Christopher Wilson faced the charge of second-degree murder. He stood quietly as the courtroom filled with Mackenzie Cowell's family, friends, and members of the public who had followed the case from day one. His mother was there too, holding back tears. When the judge asked him how he pled, he replied, "Not guilty." But the prosecution had other plans. They were confident in their case. The forensic evidence, the DNA, the blood in his apartment, the timeline, it all pointed to Wilson. And so they made a bold move. They upgraded the charge to first-degree murder, stating that the evidence supported a claim of premeditation. If convicted, Chris faced up to 26 years in prison. His defense team, led by high-profile attorney John Henry Brown, famous for representing figures like the Barefoot Bandit and even Ted Bundy, argued back hard. They claimed Chris had been framed. They said law enforcement could have planted the blood in his apartment. They suggested the real killers were the same men. Liz Reed had accused Sam and Emmanuel, even though police had already ruled them out. The defense pointed to the fact that Chris's DNA wasn't found in Mackenzie's car, nor on the knife lodged in her shoulder. They also said that the ring Liz handed to police did match one seen in an old photo of Mackenzie, although those close to her didn't recognize it. The judge agreed to bar prosecutors from mentioning Chris's fascination with Dexter or his work at funeral homes, deeming it too prejudicial. But even without that, the case was strong. So prosecutors offered Chris a deal: pled guilty to manslaughter and get just 6 years in prison. It was an astonishing offer, considering the brutality of the crime. Chris refused. He said he was innocent and wanted to clear his name. The case proceeded. Jury selection was nearing, and then just before trial was set to begin, Chris changed his mind. He asked to take the plea deal, but by that point, the 6-year offer was off the table. Prosecutors wanted more. In order to accept any plea now, they demanded a written statement from Chris, one that acknowledged what he had done. So in front of the court, his words were read aloud. "I recklessly caused the death of Mackenzie Cowell by strangulation and stabbing her with a knife." When asked if he agreed with the statement, Chris said yes. But then he added, "It's not true, I didn't do it. I just wanted to end this." He said he felt the jury pool was already biased against him. He believed he had been set up from the start. Ultimately, Chris pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter, first-degree robbery for taking Mackenzie's phone, and to an unrelated assault charge. In May 2012, he was sentenced to 14 years in prison with credit for time already served. As he was led away, something unexpected happened. Mackenzie's family and Chris's family embraced. They cried. They said sorry. Because in that courtroom, it was clear both families had lost something they could never get back. After sentencing, Chris Wilson tried to withdraw his guilty plea. He appealed to the Washington Court of Appeals, arguing that he had been pressured into confessing to something he didn't do, that the system had failed him, that the plea wasn't truly voluntary, but the court didn't agree. His appeal was denied. The case was considered closed. For a while, the town of Wenatchee tried to move forward. But scars like these don't fade easily. Mackenzie's bedroom remained untouched, a quiet tribute to the life she was supposed to live. Her father, Reed, kept a wind chime outside, and every time it swayed, he said he could hear her voice. He never stopped missing her, never stopped talking about her. In that stillness, Mackenzie's memory lived on. But the story wasn't quite finished, because in late 2023, Christopher Wilson walked free. After serving 11.5 years of his 14-year sentence, he was released. No longer a suspect, no longer an inmate, but still in the eyes of many a man, tied forever to one of the most disturbing crimes Wenatchee had ever seen. His release reignited the conversation. People asked, did he really do it? Was it justice, or had the wrong man been behind bars all this time? Some still pointed to the lack of a clear motive. Others couldn't look past the blood in his apartment, the DNA on the duct tape, the silence after being confronted with the evidence. Conspiracy theories circulated, forums revisited Liz Reed's withdrawn statement. Some insisted the real killers had escaped. But no matter how many questions lingered, no new charges were filed. No retrial, no second arrest, just silence. For Mackenzie's family, the release brought mixed emotions. Closure was never really part of the equation. Her mother once said, "The only thing worse than losing a child is losing them without seeing justice." And while there was a conviction, it never felt like a full answer. Not really. What happened to Mackenzie Cowell was an act of violence that tore a hole through a peaceful town and through the lives of everyone who knew her. A girl with ambition, with dreams, with drive. She didn't go looking for trouble. She went outside for a 15-minute break, that's all. And somehow she never came back. Maybe she trusted someone she shouldn't have. Maybe she was followed. Maybe the person who hurt her had planned it all along. We may never know the exact moment when everything changed for Mackenzie, but we do know what she left behind. A community that loved her, a family that never gave up, and a story that still haunts everyone who hears it. So when you see her face or hear her name, remember this wasn't just a case. It was a life. A life that mattered, a life that was stolen. Mackenzie Cowell was 17 years old. She deserved the world. She deserved to grow up, to dance, to cut hair, to fall in love, Shura. She deserved more than what happened that day. And we owe it to her never to forget it.